I'm a contract worker for a secret corporation that hunts supernatural creatures. Seriously, don't try to summon monsters.
Disclaimer, the content presented in this video is purely fictional and intended for entertainment purposes only.
My arms had been taking a beating recently. The tainted magic had finally fully gone through my systems, but now my left arm wasn't healing as fast as I could have liked. It hurt like a bitch, but I was glad I still had it. It could have been ripped off on the last job. I wondered if Ito had gotten his arm replaced yet. August sent me a screenshot of a job demanding we did it together. I debated the offer. Having backup was good, however I didn't know if I had the energy to deal with him that day. The longer I took to answer him, the more texts came in. I caved and said yes. Within the next few hours, I found myself at the start of a hiking trail waiting for him to arrive. In recent years, supernatural creatures have started to migrate to cities. It was easier access to food sources if they were the type able to blend in with humans. The monsters that stayed in the forests were either more animalistic or focused more on traditions. I wasn't looking forward to whatever waited in the woods. It could be anything from a werewolf to an ancient creature beyond human understanding. August arrived late. He said he was having trouble finding a babysitter he trusted. Lucas was in a kindergarten program. Most of the time August didn't work when Lucas was awake and at home. Lately, he has been having issues finding jobs that fit within school hours. He didn't mind working at night and would often go 2 days without sleeping. Most of the time Evie didn't mind staying overnight at his place to make sure Lucas was fine. But she was often busy during the day. He started to have limited options for babysitters now that I was working more. When he walked over, he raised a cooler bag to show off. Lucas helped make us lunch. He said proudly. I'll admit that was pretty cute and worth waiting for. We walked down the trail to find the reported site. August happily talked about Lucas. The pain in my arm kept me from adding much to the conversation. Soon we found ourselves at a recently used cult summoning site. Or something along those lines. A circle with Latin words had been drawn around the campfire in red paint. The area was covered with burnt-out candles and feathers. Countless messy footprints were left behind in the dirt leading off into the woods. Instead of getting down to investigating, August sat on a fallen tree lunch bag on his lap. He patted the wood next to him, causing me to raise an eyebrow. Now? I asked. He kept patting me until I sat down. I suppose there was no rush getting this job done. We had hours of sunlight left. He opened the bag and handed me a messily made sandwich. He ate some carrot sticks as we silently took our break. I've seen him eat raw meat and vegetables. And a person's brain. He couldn't eat processed food or spices. I heard he was sick for a full day trying a single chicken nugget. He pulled out an orange and offered it to me when I finished the sandwich. My hand had gotten crumbs on it. So I reached out to my other one to take what he offered. A burst of pain shot up my arm and I dropped the orange after picking it up. He caught it but didn't hand it back. Instead, he started to peel it. I can peel my own orange. I told him, reaching out again but using my good hand. Is another person doing this for you emasculating? He replied, not even looking up. A little. I said in a serious tone, even though I was joking. I've always found the idea of men not accepting help a bit silly. Your species is weak. You have only gotten this far because you rely on others. The pyramids weren't made by a single person, so take help when you can get it. He held out the peeled orange. With a dimpled smile on his face. I took it from him. Even though he was a man-eating monster, I thought it was a good thing he adopted Lucas. I had a feeling the kid would turn out alright. I glanced over to see August split his face for half a second to make his mouth wide enough to fit 2 large oranges into his mouth. Lucas would be an odd kid, but a good one with this monster as his father. After our lunch break, we got up to look around. I hunched over to look over the circle to see it wasn't all Latin. Some words humans may assume to be random scribbles had been mixed in. I didn't know Latin aside from a word or two, so I didn't know what the person had been trying to do. What do we have here? August asked after he let me look things over for a few minutes. This was most likely done by humans. I pointed out. How can you tell? He pressed, getting down to my level. August had done way more jobs than me. He should know the answer. I considered this was a test. It wasn't written in the common language supernatural creatures use. But it's close enough. They were able to write a word or two by chance. There have been thousands of years of misinformation about how spells and magic work from it being suppressed from humans. Because of that, most people think spells need to be found in human skin-bound books written in blood. If you have clear wording and enough magic to power the spell, you can use any language. I stood up and shoved my hands into my pocket to keep away the chill. August ran a finger over the red paint as if testing it. Why do creatures always tend to use the common language then? I know a few of them have been brought up in the human side of things and maybe English would be easier for them to use. I narrowed my eyes at him. He knew the answer. So why bother to check if I did? The common language doesn't have double meanings for words. It has a crap ton of words but they all mean one thing. English isn't always like that. Read is a good example. Like hey, read this or I've read that. If a word has two meanings, the magic doesn't decide on the more logical one. It picks one and you end up with a result you don't want, or the spell backfires because the magic didn't have a clear path to act on. August nodded along and played dumb. Or maybe he really didn't know all of this. Not all creatures used spells. I've only seen him use his claws and teeth. You didn't even need to use a spell to make magic do what you wanted. It took longer to write it out, but spells focused the power more efficiently into the task. Magic is a creature's life force. Using less in a fight to get the job done was key to staying alive. You seem to know a lot about this kind of stuff, but you're not overly strong. August commented. I should be offended by that. I did enough up beaten and bruised by the end of every job. The pain in my left arm proved his point. My mother hunted down monsters. I've always been around supernatural creatures. We moved a lot, and I didn't go to school as much as I should. Because of that, my only choice was to be a contract worker after my mother died. I said with a shrug. What about your father? He asked, looking me over. He was human. A biker, I think. My mother said it was a one-night stand. She always wanted kids but only got me. She always said how lucky she was to have me considering her health problems. My life with her was rough but not bad enough that I need therapy. You totally need therapy. He said without missing a beat. I shoved his shoulder. Even though he looked thin, I couldn't make him move a millimeter. What about you? Here you are asking for my tragic backstory without giving yours. I said, offended but not expecting him to actually tell me. My clan lived in some mountains. Suddenly cabins started to be built near us for a new tourist ski town. A few of the older generation saw it as free food. Contract workers got wind of it and took out my entire village. I accepted this leash to stay alive. I bounced around for a while before finally landing in Evie's care. He moved his head, show off the black ring around his neck. His voice sounded steady. But I was still kicking myself for asking him such an insensitive question. Not only did he most likely have to watch his loved ones be killed, but he was also caught and forced to work with the people who murdered his family. I looked away with a bad taste in my mouth. Humans and supernatural creatures are not meant to interact. The moment those humans stepped foot on our mountain meant death for both of us. If we keep working together, the day may come when one of us needs to turn on the other. You seem to know a decent amount about creatures, so it won't be a one-sided fight. He said in a rather calm tone. I looked back over to him, letting the words run through my head. We did try to kill each other when we first met. And then I stabbed him again in the cave, mostly trying to save my own life. If he went feral, could I kill him? I brought my attention to the empty lunch bag by the fallen tree. What about Lucas? I asked. He looked down at the ground as he gripped his hands together. This thought had come across his mind more than once. He was a monster raising a human. That fact never left his mind since he adopted the poor kid. I would never do anything to hurt him on purpose. I would rather die. But because of what I am, I'll cause him pain. He may end up hating me. Until then, I'll treasure the moments of us together. I faintly remember my mother saying the same thing to me when I was younger. Her lifestyle wasn't ideal for raising a child, but she didn't have any other way to live. She knew she was going to die young or even drag me into her kind of life, but she didn't regret the time we had together. It may be the reason why I never disliked the life we had, aside from not being able to finish high school to get a real job to stay afloat. August knew his time was limited with Lucas. He would either die on one of these jobs, or his adopted son would finally find out what kind of person was raising him. Could he deal with that information? How can you deal with finding out your parent isn't human? It is a bit random you want us to talk like this. I commented, wondering if he had some ulterior motives. I was just trying to waste some time. He admitted. I heard the sound before my brain registered what happened. August lifted his hand to block a bullet from going through my skull. His hand transformed into a claw with a protective shell. The shards of the bullet fell to the ground. He was moving before I even caught up to what was going on. I followed behind, pulling out a dagger I rented for this job. Another shot rang out from the tree line. My shoulder felt hot, but I didn't stop moving. Since I grabbed the dagger with my left hand, the hidden attacker assumed that was my dominant hand. The left side was already useless and I baited the bullet from going into my good shoulder. I heard a scream as August found his target. I got through the bush to see him sitting on the chest of someone dressed in a black robe. He pinned the man's arms to the ground but hadn't yet harmed him. "You were shot," August pointed out. "I'll recover." "Who's this?" Blood dripped down my arm from the shoulder wound. It hurt. A lot. But I pushed it to the back of my mind and took hold of the dagger in my other hand. From the smell of things, he was the one sacrificing the chickens and spray-painted the spell circle. There were traces of red paint on the bottom of the dirty robes and some feathers sticking to the sleeves. While still pinning the man down, August took away the gun to hand it to me. He did a quick pat-down to confirm the stranger wasn't holding any more weapons. The man struggled, face flushed from being manhandled. "Get the fuck off me. I didn't do anything wrong," he shouted out of breath from August sitting on his chest. "You messed around with magic. That's dangerous. Depending on what you did, you might only get a warning." I told him, a bit glad this looked to be an easy job. "Go to hell. I'll never snitch on my beloved." I made eye contact with August. He had the same idea. Most of the time spell circles were made by humans to summon whatever false god they believed in. Or people with a monster fetish trying to get a partner that would end up eating them. If he brought a dangerous creature into this world, we needed to know what it was. But the whole summoning of a god idea wasn't off the table. It was much easier than you would think to drag one into this world. I was above to press the man further for answers but froze when August changed tactics. He pinned the other man's wrists above his head in a way I've only seen in slightly edgy romance novels. His face dropped in close to take a deep breath near the stranger's neck, causing the other man to let out a surprised squeak. It was so embarrassing to watch I almost told him to stop. "The creature you summoned is very lucky. You have a nice smell about you. It's too bad we didn't meet before now." I didn't hide my disbelief. August was flirting. He pulled out every ounce of charm and this guy was about to take the bait. "You won't get me to turn on my beautiful future wife," he said with a weak voice. Suddenly August changed his face. It slightly split into four, revealing the monstrous insect he hid under his human mask. I've never seen it so clearly. Most of the time he only partially showed it, or dropped his mask monster before it was buried into flesh. The front was divided by a cross. He opened each segment wide enough to swallow an entire human head in one bit. Countless sharp teeth lined each segment. He then closed his face, it shifting to something a little more human. His mouth was still wide with needle-sharp teeth. His now black eyes were extra long, appearing half-closed as if he was smiling. They shone in a way that reminded me of an oil spill. I thought he did this to scare the man into speaking. I soon realized the terrifying face had the opposite effect. A strangled sound came from the man, his face a deep shade of red. Gross. I tried not to judge people for their preferences. But this guy was drooling over August of all people. He needed way better standards. "We just need to know if your future wife is dangerous. Why don't you introduce us to her?" August suggested in his sweetest voice. Well, as sweet as he could sound. With his mask dropped, his voice picked up a different tone. The words sounded harder, as if he found it difficult to speak. He leaned in more to whisper something I unfortunately heard. "How about we ask her if you two will consider an open marriage?" The excited noise was the answer we needed. August let the man get up off the ground, tripping over his own feet, ready to bring us to whatever monster he dragged into our world. I was horrified that the strategy worked. August gave me a thumbs up behind the man's back and I didn't return it. We followed behind and the man introduced himself and Joey. He looked around my age. He brought his hood down to show off long messy red hair and a face nearly covered with freckles. He was shorter, trying to grow out a patchy beard, and had crooked front teeth. I didn't think he was overly unattractive. Just normal looking. I wondered if he had bad luck with dating, so turned to summoning a monster wife instead. "She's a bit hard to handle to start with. I swear she's not dangerous. Just misunderstood," he told us as we walked through the wood. "Honey. It's safe, can you come out and see us?" Joey called out into the woods. "Honey. August joined in and I punched his arm. He smiled with a row of sharp teeth, clearly enjoying acting like a dumbass. He needed to take these jobs more seriously. I knew if I told him he would dismiss my concerns. I found out I preferred him goofing off compared to what else I had to deal with. A loud sound came from behind us as something large dropped from the trees. A strained expression came over August. He froze in his tracks, staring over my shoulder. "Honey. There you are," Joey said, excited to see the monster behind us. I finally looked to see what had stopped August in his tracks. I understood why Joey fell for this monster. She was beautiful. From the waist up. Long deep blue hair that was almost black hid half her face. Dark eyes with glowing red pupils were set in my direction. Long fangs ready to rip flesh peeked from her mouth. Her lower body was that of a massive spider, making her twice my height. Aside from some webbing she wrapped around her chest. She wore no clothing. Extra arms sprouted from her back, each with a long curved black blade. I got my dagger ready, but I knew I was outmatched in this fight. For a pretty face, she was scary as hell. She proved just how frightening she was when her mouth opened. Large fangs come out as well as an ear-piercing scream. August was useless. His legs gave out from under him. My body was full of fear and I wanted to join him cowering on the ground, but I pressed on. I pushed us out of the way before a sharp blade came down on us. I felt the bottom half of my new thrifted jacket get cut off. I rolled in the dirt, avoiding a shower of blades. Thankfully, Honey was going after the moving target and not the shell-shocked insect creature. My mind was racing, and fear hammered in my chest. What could I do? Joey was begging Honey to stop without any success. Whatever spell that brought her here must have made it so she couldn't kill the one who summoned her. Or she didn't care enough to do so. My weapon wasn't enough to take her down. And I couldn't leave August behind. Joey can go off and get eaten for all I care. I bet he would enjoy that. The blade sliced through thick trees I tried to hide behind. I narrowly avoided getting crushed by one as I ran. I took a huge risk to slide under her large body, my arm throbbing in pain. I didn't try to stab her, knowing her spider body would be too hard for my knife. I got up and went over to August. I took his arm, hauling him back to his feet. His face was a blank mask staring off into space. I wanted to force him to run, but it was too late. A blade came down on us and I raised my own on reflex. The spider monster was stronger and had a larger weapon and more skill. I should have been cut in half. For some reason, I lived through the attack. A sharp pain came in my left leg, and then the hand I had in August started to burn. A white-hot feeling shot through my veins straight to the knife in my hand. When the blades clashed, a burst of power exploded outwards, shattering them both. A shard of metal cut August across his face, snapping him from his trace. A large piece of Honey's weapon shot back towards her chest. It cut through the webbing she had used as a tight cloth but bounced off her hard skin. I jerked my burning hand back, ready to make a run for it. My legs refused to work. My entire body hurt so much I couldn't move. By sheer luck, Honey had some modesty. She let out a shocked sound and covered herself with her many arms. Then she rushed back off into the trees to recover. "Feel free to step in to help at any time," I hissed at August. He gave me a thumbs up I rolled my eyes at. "And you? What the hell were you thinking summoning a dangerous creature here?" I shouted at Joey. He had a dazed look on his face. He acted as if he had watched something completely different than a fight to the death. "Dangerous? I thought that was how she, got things going. I was worried she fancied you over me," he admitted. I gritted my teeth. There had to be a limit to how stupid someone could be. If he wanted to die trying to get with a monster, he should have found a way to go to them instead of bringing one here. I took stock of the situation. When Honey came back, August was useless against her. My body was too worn out to fight and Joey had stars in his eyes. When he looked at the monster that attacked us, whatever stroke of luck that shattered the blades wouldn't happen again. If it did, I would die. Simple as that. I needed another way out of this. I heard Honey stalking through the trees before I saw her. I kept a tight hold on August's arm in case we had a chance to run. She came out of the darkness, new webbing over her chest and all her arms ready. When I took a step closer to her, she tensed up. She didn't know how I shattered the blades. I was human and yet I showed an odd power I shouldn't have. It freaked her out a little. "Can we just talk?" I offered to try to break this stalemate. She slowly put away her extra arms with the weapons. She got closer, arms crossed ready to hear what I had to say. I don't want to fight you and I bet you don't want to waste time either. We only showed up here because of the sign someone summoned a creature recently. If you want to get back home, the corporation can arrange that. If you want to stay here, you need to register with them. I explained. And submit myself to them? No, I've heard of their ways. She huffed in a voice that sounded as sweet as her name. Why would she need to register with someone? Joey asked, stepping into this conversation. Honey beat me to answer. They are nasty things, keeping all supernatural creatures under their control. Step one hair out of line and they kill off your entire species. They favor humans in conflicts, and on top of all that they claim their actions are approved by the Silver King. As if our king would let so many of us be slaughtered by agents for the benefit of humans. Her words weren't entirely untrue. August was proof of that. His village had been killed when they refused to let humans on their land. If anyone here had a reason to agree with Honey, he would. No, I refuse to be a part of such a horrid company. I'll stay in this world proving my strength. I'll bring my family name honor. I cannot let go of any more of my pride after I let a man see my bare chest before marriage. She said as she tightened her arms covering her chest. If it makes you feel any better, I didn't see anything. I told her. Joey felt better by those words. August turned his head, an odd emotion on his face. Who cares about pride and honor? All it does is shorten your life. He spoke in a bitter voice. And what would an insect like you know about that? Honey narrowed her eyes down at him. Even insects have reasons to live. For my elders, it was the pride they had in their mountain. We could have left for an entirely different world with a better way of life, but they claimed we needed to honor our history. That stubbornness killed everyone. I'm still alive by sheer luck. There is no honor in a painful, lonely death. I wasn't expecting August to say any of that. He got past his fear of spiders to make eye contact with Honey, challenging her to answer. And what do you suppose I do then? Become a slave like yourself? She hissed. What do you want out of life? He replied in a calm voice. The question made Honey take a step back on her many legs. She had never had anyone ask her such a question, let alone let herself even consider such a thing. For most creatures, their lives were already planned out for them. She had expected to be strong, produce offspring, or die fighting. There had never been any other options. That doesn't factor into, she sputtered. It does. You're on your own right now. I doubt your family or any of your species is going to come here looking for you. They won't hear about if you decide to stick to what you've been taught. Or if you do something different. However, there are limits to your freedom because you're a supernatural creature. If you start fights, the corporation will catch wind of it. They'll send agents to deal with you. If you kill too many humans for food, that will also cause agents to track you down. If you register with the corporation, they'll ensure you have a home and a steady food source in exchange for what you're willing to give. It could be your silk, your magic, or just doing some filing in an office if you can read. Wait, seriously? Joey asked in disbelief. Pretty much. I shrugged. There was a little bit more to it all. This offer was only extended to sentient creatures. Monsters like the undead piles of bones I've fought before were seen as a threat to be killed. But I knew about a few cryptid-like creatures that were allowed a certain number of human deaths per year. Even the ones who registered with the corporation that needed to eat humans to live were given just enough to survive. The entire system was messy. Only the head of the corporation knew the reasoning behind why some monsters could eat how many people per year and why some creatures were killed on sight. I was paid by them, but I wasn't officially working for them. It wasn't my place to question the system. It appeared to be working though. For the most part, humans and creatures lived together on a very thread between the two worlds, always threatening to break. I do not have as many options as you first suggested. I should just kill the both of you and run off like I had planned. No need to worry about honoring my family name or being under the heel of another using my body for goods. I could have true freedom. Sweat started to form at the base of my neck. From the sounds of things, that option was what she wanted to pick. It would be a short-lived freedom. August told her. It wasn't a threat but the truth. If we died here, then they would send out agents to take care of her. We were nothing compared to an agent. I thought about cute little Ito and mentally corrected myself. We were nothing compared to most agents. If you do that, I'm coming with you. Joey spoke up, don't be silly. They would kill you too. Walk away now and you'll just get a slap on the wrist. Honey waved off his offer. I was the one who summoned you. When we met, I told you the truth. I'm going to be with you till the end. I've loved you since I saw your face and will do anything to make you happy. For a moment, he sounded pretty convincing. Honey appeared unmoved by his gentle words. Anything like drooling over the first creature you see when I'm not around? Or getting excited by an open marriage offer? That was a little embarrassing. She saw all that. She looked annoyed that Joey was so easily taken. He quickly got on his hands and knees, then pressed his forehead in the dirt as an apology. I'm sorry. I just felt like I was a worm. There is no way you could care about a pitiful thing like myself. I got carried away from the positive attention. But I truly thought you might like a second partner. You should go with him instead of me. I'm only good for stepping on. This was even more embarrassing. The sight hurt to watch. I needed to look away. A chill ran down my back as I did everything in my power to suppress what I just saw. Honey extended one of her pointed spider leg to press into Joey's back, causing him to be forced further into the dirt. He was totally into it. I regretted asking her to talk. A blade to the stomach would be better than seeing this. It was a bold thing of a little worm like you to offer to throw away your life for me. What else would you do? She pressed harder. I'll give you anything. I'll worship you. Joey said, his words slightly muffled by the dirt. What if I eat your insides while you're still alive? Or if I bring you along and make you watch as I take a different partner? What would you do then? Joey raised his head enough to let their eyes meet. I've never seen someone with such an honest expression before. I'll do whatever makes you happy. I'll give you my life or my body. If you want neither of those, it would be nice to be friends. I brought you here. The least I can do is get to know you. So, what do you want from me? Honey brought her leg back after his last question. She suddenly appeared lost. No one had ever asked her what she wanted in life. Being happy was never something she considered. As much as she hated the idea of it, if she went along with the corporation's deal, she had the chance to figure out answers to questions she never even thought of before. Finally, it appeared as if we wrapped up this job. Things are never that easy. Something hit my back hard. I landed on the ground, scrambling to stand up. I threw off whatever landed on me, then raised the gun I stole from Joey at the attacker. I screamed when I saw a spider the size of a dog staring at me with red eyes and dripping fangs. I fired the gun, blowing apart half the spider's head. They looked scary as hell, but not that strong if a bullet took care of one. My entire body itched and I was jumpy from the fear of there being more of those things around. My stomach dropped when I realized I just killed a spider in front of Honey. I started my mouth dry. That was one of my siblings. They're assholes, don't worry about it. They must have come through the same way I did, but only came out now because the sun is getting lower. At least she was on my side. Another spider went for her leg. She was faster and impaled it with the tip of her leg and pushed it off with another. I started to notice more of the red eyes in the trees. August had frozen in place again. I couldn't count on him in this fight. I quickly emptied the gun. No matter how many I killed, 2 more took its place. We would be eaten in minutes if we didn't do something soon. A black curved blade landed at my feet. I gave Honey a questioning look. I'll protect this human, you protect your useless insect. I haven't fully decided what I want to do. But I'm not going to let these little butt munchers take me out before I figure out what makes me happy. I suddenly liked Honey. I took the handle of the blade to cut the first spider in half. My body burned and I started to get dizzy. I was in no condition for this fight, but I pressed on. Thank God Honey was tough. She took out a bulk of the spiders, leaving me the leftovers she missed. When I was almost about to collapse, the smaller creatures suddenly turned tail and ran. I wanted them to just run away in fear of their bigger sister, but we had no such luck. They were running from a larger sibling that showed itself. A booming crack rang through the forest, followed by a shockwave that nearly knocked me off my feet. Creatures could come to our world by summoning. However, if the barrier between the 2 worlds had been weakened and the monster was strong enough, they could push their way through. If August hadn't frozen up before, he would have been useless now. Even my body wanted to shut down from what I saw through the trees. A massive dark shape towered over the treetops. It had the body of a wolf but the legs of a spider. 8 red eyes were set on the head of a wolf. It started a clicking sound that ended in a howl that shook the trees. Shit. My big brother came by. There goes this world. Honey muttered to herself. She was already considering a way of leaving this world to get back to hers. Damn it. This sucked. We barely held our own against the smaller spiders, and now this? If I called back up, they would not arrive in time to save us. We had minutes before that thing spotted us and brought its fangs down. August was useless. Joey stared at the new monster as if he had just found a playboy in the woods. So, he was more than useless. I couldn't run and was finding it hard to stand. That left Honey. Anyone could see she wasn't on the same level as this beast. I counted her blades. 7, including the one in my hand. Do you want to stay in this world to try and find your happiness? I asked her. She glances between the beast and Joey. She nodded, which made me let out a sigh of relief. I had a plan, but I wasn't sure if it would work. How fast can you produce silk? I asked her. Very. She nodded. How fast can you run? Super fast. Can the tip of your leg grow back? She nodded, a bit confused. I just needed someone to distract the wolf spider long enough to get our plan into motion. If Joey did it, he would die too fast. To my shock, August moved. In a blur, he had raced into the forest towards the massive monster. Its eyes started to follow him, and it brought some long legs down trying to kill him. Good thing August was able to run faster when it came to spiders. With my heart in my throat, I told Honey what she needed to do. We had everything arranged in under 2 minutes. Either August had been squished to death, or the wolf spider got bored. It turned its eyes in our direction. Without any more hesitation, I told Honey to get started. She had made 7 slings for her blades out of silk. When she cut one thread, the tension was broken, causing each blade to get shot forward, cutting down anything in their path. They hit their target, each blade exploding into a burst of magic she placed inside the weapons. Blasts landed on the wolf's face, 2 of the smaller eyes were blinded by the attack. We knew it wouldn't be enough to take it down. That was where my dumb idea came in. We needed it to be distracted long enough to not see Honey throwing me as hard as she could at the monster. I held the long pointed end of one of her legs as if I were jousting in midair. Her aim hit exactly where was needed it to. The leg sank in deep into one of the monster's eyes, causing it to roar out in pain. I let go, rolling down the creature's large face, and then towards the ground. We attached a thread to the piece of torn-off leg now buried in the monster's eye. The thin piece of strong silk connected the pair just long enough. When I was out of the way, she shot through as much magic as she could. The power fired directly through the injured eye and inside her big brother's brain. The only way to kill most creatures was to hit it with magic on the inside. Another stroke of luck was the beast fell the opposite way I did. Honey jumped to snag my body with some webbing before I died from hitting the ground. Still, the sudden stop from falling in midair was enough to make me black out. I wasn't certain how much time had passed. I woke up in a dark room. Fumbling for the lights, my head hurting almost as much as my left shoulder. I knew this room. The corporation had many offices. Each one had identical treatment rooms for people getting off jobs who needed to rest after minor injuries. While I was blacked out, someone had treated the bullet wound in my shoulder. I was thankful for that, but dreaded how much they would take out of my pay for the service. I walked out to the lobby when August came out of the interview rooms. He smiled and made his way over. Do you want to go in and give a debrief, or do you want to put it off? The 3 of us already finished ours. Most of the time we only were required to do reports by email. When things like a huge wolf spider breaking through into our world happened, an in-person report was requested. I'll get it over with. I sighed. The room was simple. 1 table, 2 chairs. A man greeted me when I entered. A plate of baked goods and juice was pushed my way. I had never met this person before. I assumed he was an agent at one point. He lacked a suit jacket but was dressed in a tie and white pressed shirt. His hair was gray and neatly cut. He kept his hands folded on the table on top of some folders of paper. His hands were covered in scars. His face wasn't much different. 4 deep claw marks ran down his face from his forehead to his chin. The scars tore through his lips, revealing teeth, giving him a grim smile. His eyes were kind, and I found myself able to relax as I sat down. We went over everything that happened as he wrote down what I said. His voice was soft with some sort of accent I couldn't place. He didn't have any issues talking despite his exposed teeth, aside from the occasional sharp inhale after a sentence. What's going to happen to Honey and Joey? I asked when we were finally finished. We're still talking that over with them. So far Honey has not displayed any signs of aggression towards humans, besides yourself of course. We're letting them choose what they would like to do. She didn't actually have a lot of choices. Go back to her world and be unhappy or deal with a company she hated. How did Joey do all this? He didn't seem to have the power to make such a mess. My interviewer looked through his papers to double-check some information. Seems as if he found out the summoning ritual over Discord. Whatever that is. There are a few humans recklessly sharing some dangerous information. Another group summoned some female hyena creatures. They were devoured, but we're not faulting the hyenas. We returned all but one to where they came from. That one wanted a job with us. Now, knowing how to summon these creatures is the first part. You must have the power to follow through. Joey burned a dagger that had been in his family for generations, unaware it held true magic. The men who summoned the hyenas sacrificed a virgin. My head felt heavy. Because that group wanted some hot monster girlfriends, a person was dead. I was glad I didn't eat any of the offered treats when I entered the room. Bile rose to the back of my throat and I felt so very tired. Monsters and humans should never interact with each other. I muttered to myself. You think so? The interviewer asked, his smile pushing back most of my negative thoughts. I've seen a lot happen between creatures and humans. Despite it all, I think there are good moments. After all, I enjoyed talking with you. He pushed the tray closer to make me take a cup of juice. The sugar washed down some bitterness. This guy was smooth. It must be part of his job to be so charming. I would suggest you take some time off. You got battered from today. I would like to dismiss you, but I want to ask a personal question. He said with a sharp inhale through his scars. I raised an eyebrow, wondering what on earth he would want to ask. Why did you ask Honey to throw yourself with her leg? Surely the leg was sharp enough to pierce the eye. Did you need to risk your life like that? I felt a redness come to my face. I chugged down the rest of my drink and started to stuff my pockets with cookies and muffins. I thought the extra weight would push the leg deeper down. It was a good plan. I defended myself. I'm not saying it wasn't a good plan. He held a serious face for a moment, then he needed to raise a hand over his mouth to cover up his laughter. I lived, therefore it was a good plan. I'm leaving now, Mr. Know-It-All. I said, annoyed. My name is Klaus. I hope we don't need to meet again. His gentle voice and kind face made me pause. Seeing him meant I did a very dangerous job. If I wanted to keep my life, I needed to limit how many times I needed to go into this room for a report. We will. I told him and stole more baked goods before I left. I got home and collapsed in bed. Since we took down such a large monster, the pay would be more than normal. I have time to take it easy. A massive debt still hung over my head. No matter what I did, it felt like I hadn't even touched the amount left. Just before I fell asleep that night, August sent me a text. Lucas wants a jumping spider as a pet. What should I do? I ran through a few replies but settled on a simple answer. Man up and get one.
Until next time, subscribe to stay up to date with all updates. No screamers or shocking moments, only comfort and safety. Bye.